You don't see it yet. You smell it. Smoke, but not the clean smoke of a bonfire in open air. This is denser. Wood ash, olive oil, grain dust, and beneath it all, the particular warmth of animals that have been sleeping in an enclosed space all night. The smell reaches you before you've stepped through the gate, before your eyes have adjusted. You are here. You are standing at the entrance to a courtyard. 1st century Galilee, somewhere around the year 30 AD. The temple in Jerusalem is still standing. Herod's great reconstruction has been underway for decades. 70 miles south, sacrifices are being offered at this exact hour. The Tamid, the daily morning offering, before the sun breaks over the Mount of Olives. Up here, in the Galilee hills, a woman is already awake. She has been awake for an hour. The sound you heard from outside, that low, rhythmic grinding, is coming from inside the courtyard. Millstones, 2 basalt discs, the lower one fixed in stone, the upper one turning, grain goes in, flour comes out. This has been the first sound of every morning in this village since before anyone here can remember. The bread will be ready by the time the men rise. Come inside. Before we go further, 3 things no one told you about this house. First, this home is not a refuge from religion. It is the center of it. The temple organizes the calendar. This house lives it out. Every day, every hour, in objects you can hold. Second, the roof is not a roof. It is a room. Arguably the most important room in the house. The Last Supper happened up there. Peter's vision in the book of Acts happened up there. Those 4 men who tore through a roof to lower their friend to Jesus. They were tearing through someone's living space. Third, every object in this house is an object Jesus of Nazareth handled. The lamp on the stand, the stone jars by the door, the Mezuzah his mother kissed every morning, the Tabun oven where bread was made before sunrise. When Jesus pointed at these things in his teaching, he was not reaching for metaphor. He was pointing at the furniture of his own childhood home. You are not studying an exhibit. You are stepping into the room where Christianity was formed from the ground up. Before you cross the threshold, stop, look to your right. At the doorpost, at approximately eye height, there is a small case. Carved stone, or wood, or simple fired clay, 1.5 inches wide, maybe 3 inches tall, nailed to the right side of the frame, tilted slightly inward. This is the Mezuzah, and if you know what is inside it, the whole house changes. Inside that case is a small scroll of parchment, leather from a kosher animal, prepared by a trained scribe. It contains the words of Deuteronomy 6:4-9. The Shema, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. The command is right there in the text. Write these words on the doorposts of your house. This is not a tradition someone invented. It is an instruction obeyed. Every member of this household touches this case every time they enter, every time they leave. The mother touches it as she carries water from the cistern. The children brush it as they run outside. The father presses his hand to it when he returns from the field at dusk. This is not superstition. It is not decoration. It is a daily, physical act of covenant renewal. Every departure is a reminder of what they carry. Every return is an acknowledgement of who owns this space. The Mezuzah does not say, "We are religious people." It says, "This threshold is the boundary between the world and a household that belongs to God. Cross it, and you are inside something consecrated." You step through and into the courtyard. The first thing you notice is that it is not private, surrounded on 3 or 4 sides by rooms, but connected through shared walls or shared gates to the households on either side. Extended family, your husband's parents to the north, his brother's family to the east. This is not a house, it is a compound. The Hebrew term is Beit Av, the house of the father. It is the basic social and legal unit of ancient Israelite life. 3 generations, sometimes 4. Married sons who never left, daughters waiting for marriage, servants in the outer rooms, a single cistern shared by all of them. Everything that happens in this household happens in front of witnesses. There is no private space, and none is expected. The courtyard is functional, not decorative, not comfortable in any modern sense. Stone paving or packed earth, a grinding installation in the corner, the one producing that sound you heard from outside. A Tabun oven in the open air where the smoke can escape. Storage jars ranked against the walls. Grain, olive oil, wine, dried fish. The rooms around the perimeter are sleeping space, storage space, workspace. The life of this household happens out here, under the sky. The woman at the grinding stone has been at work for more than an hour. She is probably in her late 20s. Her hands are calloused in a way most people today would associate with serious manual labor, because that is exactly what this is. Grain does not grind itself. The upper millstone weighs several kilos. She is sitting cross-legged on a mat, leaning into the rotation, her arms pushing in a rhythm she has been practicing since childhood. This is not unusual. This is breakfast. The prophets understood this so clearly that the sound of millstones became shorthand for civilization itself. Jeremiah 25, prophesying judgment on Jerusalem, does not say, "The city will go quiet." He says, "I will banish from them the sound of millstones." That was the sound of normal life, of a household that still had grain and hands to grind it. When that sound stopped, something essential had ended. The flour being produced right now will be mixed with water and shaped into flat rounds, slapped against the inside wall of the Tabun. 20 minutes of intense heat. The bread will be coarse, dark, dense. It will form the center of every meal today. Not a side dish. The meal. The woman lights the Tabun. The fire is fed with dried dung, the same fuel used across the ancient Near East. The same fuel referenced in Ezekiel 4, when the prophet is commanded to bake bread over human dung and recoils, and is permitted to use animal dung instead. The smell is familiar to every person in this courtyard. It does not register as unpleasant. It registers as mourning. Jesus will later ask a crowd, "Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone?" The question is not theoretical. It is anchored in this exact scene. In a mother at a Tabun before dawn. In the act of daily bread as the most basic expression of parental care. The Greek word used in the Lord's Prayer, epiousion, has no exact equivalent in any other ancient text. Scholars debate its precise meaning. What everyone in that original audience understood was the reference point, this, the Tabun, the millstone, the smoke rising before sunrise. Bread was not a metaphor for provision. Bread was provision. The metaphor worked because the literal was so real. Inside the main room, near the entrance, there are stone vessels. Not clay, not wood. Stone. This distinction is not about aesthetics. It is about law. Under Jewish purity regulations, ceramic vessels that come into contact with ritual impurity must be broken. They cannot be purified. But stone is unique. Stone cannot contract ritual impurity. A stone vessel, once manufactured, remains permanently clean. This is why clean water for hand washing is stored in these particular vessels. Every meal in this household begins with clean hands, and clean hands require clean water, and clean water requires vessels that the law cannot make impure. This is why John 2:6 specifies, with unusual precision, 6 stone water jars, the kind used for ceremonial washing. The miracle at Cana does not happen in a wine cellar. It happens in a domestic space, with vessels present in every observant Jewish home. Jesus chooses these vessels. Not incidentally, every person in the room at Cana understood exactly what those jars meant. He is performing a miracle in the most ordinary domestic religious object of first-century Jewish life. The water that was already there, water set aside for the law, becomes wine. Whatever theology you draw from that, the physical detail is the foundation. Stone jars, by the door, in a Jewish home, 2,000 years ago. The sun has not yet fully risen. The courtyard is gray. Inside the main room, a single oil lamp is burning. It is terracotta, pinched clay, roughly oval, with a small wick of flax floating in olive oil. The flame is about half the size of a candle flame. It provides enough light to see by, barely, if you are close to it. The lamp is not on the floor. It is not in a corner. It is sitting on a stand, a stone pedestal, elevated to about shoulder height, in the middle of the room, where it can provide what little light it has to everyone inside. When Jesus says, "You are the light of the world," a town on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl, but on its stand, every person listening has looked at this exact object every morning of their life. He is not constructing a metaphor from scratch. He is pointing at a lamp. The lampstand is doing exactly what he says a lamp does. It is in the middle of the room. It is giving light to everyone in the house. Modern readers encounter flat-roofed houses of the ancient world and file them away as architectural detail. But the roof in first-century Jewish domestic life is not an architectural detail. It is a room. The law required it. Deuteronomy 22:8. When you build a new house, make a parapet around your roof, so that you may not bring the guilt of bloodshed on your house if someone falls from the roof. The Torah is not warning you not to go up there. It is acknowledging that you absolutely will go up there, all the time, and mandating that you build a railing so no one falls off. Access is by an external staircase, stone or mud brick steps rising from the courtyard. The surface is flat, compacted mud reinforced with straw. In the heat of summer, this is the most important sleeping space in the house. Elevated, exposed to the breeze, far cooler than the rooms below. Grain is dried up here. Flax is laid out. Figs spread to cure in the sun. It is workspace. It is sleeping space. And it is prayer space. In Acts 10, Peter goes up to the roof to pray, the 6th hour, noon, when the sun is directly overhead. He is waiting for food to be prepared in the house below. He goes to the roof because that is where you go when you need to be alone with God. It is the only reliably private space in a household compound with no interior walls between family units. The book of Acts is not set in synagogues and palaces. It is set in houses. And the action, the prayer, the visions, the encounters that change everything, keeps moving upstairs. The upper room of the Last Supper, the upper room where the disciples gathered after the resurrection. These are not special locations. They are the rooftop rooms of ordinary Jerusalem homes, used for the thing rooftop rooms were always used for. The gathering of people who need to be somewhere private enough to speak honestly. The disciples chose a rooftop room because that is where the honest conversations had always happened. Here is what Western readers almost always miss about the bait of, you cannot leave it. The prodigal son story only makes sense if you understand this. When the younger son asks for his share of the inheritance, he is not asking for it early. He is asking for the portion that will come to him when his father dies. He is asking for it now, while his father is living. In the honor-shame culture of first-century Galilee, this is not an awkward conversation. It is a public rupture. The father is being declared dead by his own child, in a community where everyone will know within hours. The compound makes this legible. Everyone in that household, the grandparents, the brother, the servants, knows what happened. There are no secrets in a bait of. There are no walls thick enough. When the father runs to meet his returning son, running, which a man of honor in that culture would never do, he is not just expressing private joy. He is staging a public rehabilitation. He is making a visible, undeniable display of restoration before the community can form its judgment. He is running so the community sees the father before they see the son. Hospitality in this culture is not a personality trait. It is a covenantal obligation. Rooted in the story of Abraham, who sat at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day, saw 3 strangers approaching and ran to meet them. He bowed. He called for water for their feet. He had bread and a fatted calf prepared. He stood by while they ate. This is the model. The practical implication for a household in first-century Galilee is this. If a traveler arrives, you feed them. If they need shelter, you provide it. The bread from the Tabun, the wine in the stone jars, the oil for the lamp. These are not yours alone. They belong to the obligation of hospitality, which belongs to God, who provided them. This is the social world behind every scene in the Gospels where Jesus appears in someone's home. The woman with the alabaster jar, the dinner at Matthew's house, Zacchaeus coming down from the tree, and Jesus saying, "I must stay at your house today." The house is not just a location. It is a theological claim. Someone chose to open the door. The day in a first-century Jewish household is not organized around productivity. It is organized around prayer. 3 times, morning, afternoon, and evening. The framework corresponds to the 3 daily sacrifice cycles in Jerusalem, offered on behalf of all Israel. When the priests offered the morning tamid at dawn, Jewish households across the country oriented their prayers toward Jerusalem at the same hour. This is not coincidence. It is architecture. The household is designed to function as a local outpost of the temple's worship. The Mezuzah at the door corresponds to the inscriptions on the temple gates. The stone vessels for purity correspond to the laver in the temple courtyard. The prayer toward Jerusalem corresponds to Solomon's prayer at the temple's dedication, that wherever Israel prays, God would hear from this place. Every home in Galilee is a small temple, not metaphorically, architecturally, liturgically, by intention. Then, Friday afternoon comes, and something changes. The grinding stone stops before sunset. The Tabun has been loaded with food prepared while cooking was still permitted. The house has been swept, fresh water drawn from the cistern. The children have been scrubbed. The courtyard, usually a workspace, usually full of the noise and smell of daily labor, goes quiet. At sunset, a woman lights 2 lamps. One for remember, Exodus 20, the Sabbath of creation. One for observe, Deuteronomy 5, the Sabbath of liberation. The same command, given twice, to a people who need both. The reminder that they are made in the image of a God who rested, and the reminder that they were once slaves who could not. The blessing is spoken. The table is set. Bread, wine, food prepared in advance. The household that has been a factory 6 days a week has become, for 25 hours, something else entirely. The rabbis described Shabbat as a foretaste of the world to come. Every week, in this house, in this courtyard, around this table, a rehearsal for eternity. Here is what you have been standing inside without knowing it. Every object in this house points in the same direction. The mezuzah at the door, touched every day, points to the law. To the command to love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your strength. The stone vessels point to the law's requirement that the body approaching the holy must be clean. The lamp on the stand points to the obligation to illuminate, not to hide what has been given to you. The rooftop prayer space points toward Jerusalem. The hospitality at the door points to Abraham, and through Abraham to the covenant, and through the covenant to the God who made it. The entire household is oriented toward one place, the temple. Not as a building, though the building matters, and 70 miles away at this exact moment, smoke is rising from its altar, but as a system, a theology of holiness moving outward from its center, from the Holy of Holies to the inner court, to the outer court, to the city, to the land, and finally to this courtyard, in this village in the hills, where a woman is lighting 2 lamps at the beginning of Shabbat. She is doing what temple priests do, initiating holiness. And here is the detail that should stop you entirely. Jesus of Nazareth grew up in a house like this one. He touched this mezuzah. He sat at a tabun and ate the bread his mother made before dawn. He went up to the roof to pray. He was raised in a bet of Joseph's household, his brothers, the compound of an extended family in Nazareth. He walked past these stone jars every day. He sat in the light of this lamp. When he said, "I am the light of the world," he was standing in the tradition of every lamp that had ever been placed on a stand in a Jewish home. Every lamp that refused to go under a bowl. He knew exactly what he was saying, because he had grown up watching it. You think you know what the first century looked like? Sandals, scrolls, sandstone. You have seen the paintings. What you have not seen, what almost no one shows you, is the sound of a millstone at 4 in the morning and what it meant to the woman turning it. The lamp she lit to see by. The mezuzah she kissed when she left, and again when she came home. The roof where she prayed, because it was the only private space in a household that never stopped watching. You have not been shown that the world Jesus moved through was not a backdrop. It was a theology he had been living inside since childhood. If your faith has gone a little flat, if the ancient world feels distant and the stories feel familiar in a way that has somehow stopped surprising you, ask yourself what it would feel like to have the law of God not in a book on a shelf, but carved into the threshold of every door you enter. Not as a reminder, as an architecture, as the walls you live inside. What does it change for you to know that the objects Jesus pointed to in his teaching, the lamp, the bread, the stone jars, the roof, were not metaphors he invented, but the furniture of his own childhood home?